Hey, it's Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and this is part one. So I got this Motor Max American Legends pickup truck I got from Walmart. I think I paid $8 for it. It's just a fairly cheap 1/24th scale die-cast vehicle. And I've been wanting to do something with it. I had some ideas, and I just never had the time. So with this quarantine stuff going on, I'm kind of partially employed. Um, so I figured I'd start tackling it, and boy, was I! It's a big project. I forgot how long working with the 124th is great because you have a lot of things you can do, but at the same time, you have a lot of things you can do. So it takes a long time. So I have to break this up, and I'm actually filming up until where I really am at this point. So I still have a long ways to go. But I figured I needed to do a video, and since I had to break it up anyways, I would do that. So again, it's a pretty cheap model. There's nothing, checking to see if the wheels in the front turn. They don't articulate left and right anyways. They do spin. Nothing fancy. It's the doors do open. Everything's plastic inside. The base is 100% plastic and pretty straightforward and flat. So after taking it apart, it's pretty straightforward. The cab is all die-cast. Surprisingly, and I didn't know this, the bed is all plastic. It's completely 100% plastic. So that left me in a little bit of a, I'm used to working with metal. You don't have as much flexibility with plastic as you do, obviously, with metal. So my original goal was to take this Nova, and I bought this for this reason. And because it's a 1/24 scale model, I wanted to use the wheels out of it and get rid of the farm truck style dog dish hubcap wheels. And the Nova had some pretty cool stuff, and I figured I could take the motor as well. After playing with it and trying the wheels, I noticed that it would have been cool, but it really would have just been a quickie swap. So I have this big time muscle Mustang that I thought, hey, I could screw up two vehicles. So I decided to take this apart, and I wanted to go, instead of going with like a 60s or 70s street machine rake style pickup truck, I wanted to kind of go with more of a slammed airbag style, and these wheels would be perfect. Now, the issue that I kind of run into, as you can see, this whole thing like starts to fall apart as you take stuff out. That's a really well-made casting, though. So if you guys haven't experienced the Jada stuff, it's really nice. So, and the detail is really cool. So I start looking at it, and I'm like, well, instead of taking the wheels, maybe I just swap chassis completely. So that sent me on a tangent of pretty much cutting a lot of stuff. And I'm going to take you through the entire process here. And I know this is like a 21-minute video or so, a little bit longer than my normal videos. But when you're working with stuff like this, it's all trial and error. So you can kind of see, and you'll see this throughout the video, is I'm always trying to make sure things fit. And there's no rhyme or reason as to where I start, but in this case, I decided to start with the actual cab itself. And initially, I was just checking the width. Now it's a little bit wider than I had hoped, as far as from the outside of the wheel to outside of the wheel. So that requires a little bit of grinding actually on the casting itself, both on the front and on the plastic bed, to get everything to fit. And I want this, slammed, so you lose even more clearance than you probably would need to if you kept this a little bit higher. So the top of the wheel wells round out a little bit, so I had to grind that smooth. And then obviously in the bed, the inside fender wells were not even close to being good enough, wide enough, or long enough, so I have to cut those out completely, which is fine. If I was airbagging this, I would have cut those out anyways and either put really big, wide tubs in, which I'm not a fan of, or just let the wheels ride, because it's not like I'm going to be taking this thing through the mud or anything. And I guess I'm just pretending anyways, because it's just a toy. But sometimes you forget, and you start working on stuff, and it's like, okay, well, this has to be realistic. This has to, you have to pick and choose what you're going to, where to draw the line, because you could just go forever and get down this rabbit hole. So a combination of my cutoff wheel and the jeweler's saw, and because I needed to sit low, I need to cut the rear roll pan off, which actually it did have a bumper, so it's not really a roll pan. It's just the rear sheet metal underneath the tailgate, which doesn't open because it's all just plastic anyways. But I needed to cut that down a little bit, and I probably use my cutoff wheel for 90% of what I'm doing in this first video. So in order to get it to sit down, obviously I also have to cut the actual frame itself, or the chassis, is a lot longer than what it needs to be, so that I can get this to sit over the fender wells. Over the wheels, even, so that the wheels are centered on the fender wells. So but the wheelbase on this was perfect, which was surprising. So I didn't have to cut the frame and stretch it or shrink it or anything like that. So that I've done that in the past, and it's kind of a pain in the neck to get things to line back up again. So I got kind of lucky, considering at this point it was too late. I'd pretty much cut everything up. And sometimes, you sit there and you can look at a project all you want, but until you actually start, things just start coming together, and you just cut until you can't cut anymore. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And it's a lot of trial and error, as I said, and you just have to keep, you need to be calculated, but at the same time, you can't sit there and overthink crap, and you just have to go with your gut and start cutting stuff. You can always add styrene to build things back up again if you have to. So it's not the end of the world, but it's certainly something you have to pay attention to. So after I'd put the bed on, you can see right here I'd marked, well, you can't really see it, but I'd marked with a pen the line that I needed to cut to allow the whole bed to sit as low as I was hoping to get it. And again, I'm starting on the back, and then I'll match the cab to the bed, because you want it to sit flush, because it is two pieces, and it would look kind of stupid otherwise. So it's, again, more fitting, just trying to get the stance that I'm looking for. And if you guys have watched any of my videos, for me, it's all about the stance, and I spend more time on that than anything. And I'm also going to point out that I don't build for beauty or for any other thing aside from I enjoy doing what I do, and I cut up a lot of stuff. I don't really I don't restore anything, to be honest with you. And I'm hoping that just through whatever it is I'm doing, it might spark some creativity and some ideas in you, like, oh, that's a horrible idea, but I like this, or oh, that's awesome, I have something similar I could do. Whatever it is, I'm hoping it inspires people just to get out and try something different, or it gives you an idea to do something different. And that's really the whole point of these videos, and it keeps me from going insane at home. So I just have fun doing this. So here you can see I'm using the edge of my grinding disc on my Dremel tool to narrow the front fenders a little bit, to allow the thickness of these wheels to actually fit in there and turn. And I do a combination of both this grinding disc, and then I'll use a barrel sander as well, just to try to get, I don't want to take too much at the same time. At this stage of the game, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to paint this. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, to be honest with you. I still don't know. But I want to have options, so I'm trying to be as careful as I can without gouging the paint, just in case I decide to do something with the original blue and not strip it all, or, which I probably won't, but I'm still not sure. But you can see here I'm putting it on, and it's still you know, it fits if I was going to keep this lifted a little bit, but it's definitely something I want slammed on the ground, so I have to keep going, and I'm doing a little bit at a time. I grind a little, I fit it. I grind a little, I fit it. And that's ultimately the name of the game on any of the parts that you're going to see me do. I always do little bits at a time and try to just take what I need. And it's probably more time consuming that way instead of just cutting a big chunk out. But we all have different processes, and that just happens to be mine. So after I've done it, I'm going to file it down a little bit. And I want to take a minute to say thank you to everybody who does watch and subscribe and comment and like. That it does mean the world to me. I try to respond to everything, or at least like it. I've been a little distant lately with everything going on. I've just been out of it, and we got a lot going on. I mean, everybody's healthy, thank God, in my family. I unfortunately do know a few people that passed away due to this virus that's going around, and my heartfelt thanks goes out to everybody, because this does help me deal a little bit. And if anybody's experiencing anything relative to this virus in a bad way, my heart goes to you, and I hope you guys get better. And I hope everybody's dealing in their own way with being under quarantine. And, you know, I mean, it's very easy to fall into a rabbit hole of depression if you're, you know, used to working and now you're not working, or you have family members that aren't doing well and you can't see them. I hear you, and my heart goes out to you. So anyway, so obviously, like the front, I had to cut the tip of the chassis off as well so that the whole nose will fit down. And I'm thinking at this point, I'm pretty good. There's a couple tabs you can see on the back of the cab itself. What I'm trying to do is get those to sit as flush as possible, because once I can do that, then I know I have the right ride height, which is pretty much what I'm looking to do. But you'll notice that the cab corners, or the faux cab corners, go in a little bit. So I've got to notch out the frame just a little bit. I end up cutting more down the road just because I need to narrow the cab aspect of the chassis. But at this point, I don't know that. So I'm just notching out these little pieces so that I can at least get the cab to sit as flush as I possibly can. And it fits great. The issue I ran into was actually when I put the interior in. That was hitting the actual chassis too. So, but at this stage of the game, I don't know that. And I just gave it away. So, spoiler alert. So again, once I do, I fit it for the 1,000th, probably 500th time. And you'll notice, again, like most of my videos, I'm a complete slob when I work. I get crap everywhere. When I'm cutting and drilling and fitting and grinding, I don't bother cleaning up. I just let it all sit there, and I kind of brush it away with my hand once in a while. Keeps me in the mood. So you can see right there pretty much what I'm after. It's starting to get it still needs a little bit of work, but that's kind of where I'm at. That's the stance I'm looking for. I really want those wheels, tucked up in there, nice and tight. So the bed cover, which is like a wood grain, obviously isn't going to fit because of the size of the wheels is a lot bigger than the original wheel wells that were in it. So I'm actually using a ruler for once, which I never do. And I actually measured it out. And I'm going to still have to play around with the fitment, as far as, because the wheel wells were much longer than the wheels that are in there. So I'm not cutting that aspect of it. I'm just cutting it deeper, not longer. But I need to fabricate something a little bit better, because when I do finally get it fitting in there, it looks a little silly. So the sucky part of this whole thing is, this is just part one. And part one was mainly trying to get the stance right and what I needed to do to get to that point. Part 2 and 3, or if there is a third part, I'm not sure, is going to be getting a motor in it, getting the interior fit, getting a firewall built or ground down and smoothed. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, and getting the mounts so that I can put this thing together and not just sitting on a piece of plastic, and it can actually be secured. So there's a lot that goes into these. When you look at going from a 1/64th Hot Wheels or Matchbox car to something to this extent, there's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving parts that you have to kind of pay attention to, because you have to think about how you're going to put it together. And if I do decide to paint, I've also got to think about that and what I can put together ahead of time, what I can't. Once it's painted, do I want to be screwing around with something, trying to fit it in there? So you pretty much, like a regular car, if you're building a hot rod or a muscle car and you've got something that was kind of a basket case, you fabricate everything. We did a Ranchero once, similar to this. I mean, it had, I think it was 26-inch rims at the time, full airbags, this custom chassis. We had to fabricate headers, and I mean, the thing was crazy. But you pretty much have to build the entire thing piece by piece, put it all together, make sure it looks good. Then you got to take it all apart again so you can start painting and powder coating, and you have to do so knowing when you put it back together that it's going to go back together and go back together right, and without scratching the hell out of stuff. So that's why I spend a little bit more time on this side of it than I do on the other, because preparation is everything. And that's kind of where I'm at on, and kind of how I approach most of my builds. And I know not everybody's got their own style, how they do things. That just happens to be mine. So you can see right there, you might not be able to see, but it overhangs a little bit more on the back than the front. So I'm going to have to do something with that and add some plastic to it and paint it. Or I might just leave it alone and put a tonneau cover. I'm not 100% sure at this point. Again, this is only part one. I'm hoping to be able to do it in 2 parts, but I'm thinking 3. You can see I'm kind of thinking about it there. And I'm not cutting a lot out of this video. I'm actually showing you just about everything. So the interior obviously is one piece. It's the interior and the engine compartment with the plastic molded engine. So I'd cut that off. Now it's a matter of cutting the firewall, which is plastic, as close to flush as I can so it sits in there and I've got clearance and it looks halfway decent. But again, that's by the time I'm done, I'm going to pretty much have to fabricate a new firewall, or at least really putty the hell with some plastic pieces here and there to get it to look good. I want a nice clean firewall if I can get it. You're not going to see a lot of it because it's going to be buried, and I'm not going to put a hood on it. So I like the look of these trucks without the hood. I think it looks pretty cool. So when I do put the interior in, these plastic standouts that are like wheel surrounds, those are in the way and it hits the interior. So I got to cut those off. And again, this is what I'm talking about. You start putting stuff together one piece at a time, and you keep finding stuff you got to cut. And if I hadn't pre-fit this with the interior, I wouldn't have known that these little standouts are going to hit where the actual firewall comes down on the inside, where your feet would be. So again, it's a lot of grinding, cutting. I still got a ton of filing I'm going to have to do to get this all smooth, but it's just little by little, and take your time. This whole thing's supposed to be fun. I put a lot of pressure on myself to get stuff out because I have to do a video, but I'm slowly getting over that to the point where I kind of don't care anymore. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to have fun with it one way or the other, and get a video out when I get a video out. I'm still going to get one out, at least one a week. So if I can't make 2, I don't make 2. But anyways, that's pretty much where it's at. You can see I'm kind of fitting once again how things are going to go. But now with the interior in there, you can kind of see how the frame or the chassis just needs to be trimmed just a little bit on the inside. But it does roll, and that's what I was after. I think it's going to look really cool, really tough. I'm glad I went this route. Of course, I'm putting the bed on back asswards. But yeah, this is a fun project. I can't wait to keep going on it and show you guys the end result. So I hope you guys like this. I've got a couple pictures here at the end. Hopefully you guys stick around, and I hope you guys like this. I mean, I don't always do these larger scales, so if you hate these, let me know. If you like these, let me know. So I will catch you on the next one.